Like, we're talking about things that are hacked together on our desks. Get a load of this, right? So this is a custom microphone stand.
Oh wow, nice.
And it's got a holder for my pen, and it's got two attenuators here, so you can put like a Eurorack signal in and attenuate it. And like for real, I genuinely used to run tracks through this.
Wow.
To like attenuate the modular to a cassette machine. I built this, and it's literally just two pots, two jacks. But yeah, now it stays on my desk forever.
that is genius. That is, yeah. I mean, I'm nowhere near that level. Yeah, so,
there's no like real circuitry in it at all, man. It's literally just you're just like running it over the pots. it's stupid.
Amazing.
But yeah, thanks for chatting to us, man. I'm already recording. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah.
I thought it would be like it'd be a good time for us both to chat, because we've both been working on fairly similar projects for like quite a while now. We've both been doing groove boxes and stuff. There's a lot of crossovers, but there's also a lot of things that we're doing quite differently. So it'd be really fun to get into that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. But see, I watched this video that you did yesterday, and we're going to talk about drones first, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's one thing that you wish you knew about drones before getting into drones?
Ooh, drones. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything, any kind of like gotchas of getting a drone? I mean, there's a bit of stuff. If you want to fly in Europe, you have to. I mean, if you want to be a good boy, and generally I try to be a good boy in life.
Yeah.
And you have to do this kind of like proficiency training thing, which was a bit more involved than I thought, and then you have to get in liability insurance. But I don't know, that was like 100
So
quid.
then what, do you literally have to go to like a drone school for a day and like prove that you can do it? Like,
no, it's just like an online test. It's I guess it's similar to like the sort of driving. Yeah,
theory. I was thinking it's like getting like a provisional license or something.
that's the deal. And I'm sure loads of people don't bother, but because the first kind of like big outing for the drone was in Norway last year, and my friends there up in Tromsø, because I mean Tromsø is it's right up north in the Arctic Circle, and it's a big tourist destination for Northern Lights seekers, and they've had loads. But actually, in the airport, in the sort of arrival and departures area, they've got this sort of like box of shame of drones that they've either shot down or confiscated.
No way.
So it's like, okay, you need to make sure that you abide by the laws. And they were like, yeah, if we catch you flying a drone in the wrong place without the right license, then you might even get deported and be able to come back. So I was like, yeah.
Mad. I live like in Calderdale in the countryside, and I seen one guy using one around here, and it looked sick. He had like a VR headset on and an Xbox controller, and he was just stood in the middle of a field, and like you could hear it, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, can you like look into yours with the headset? Is that
no,
is that like a pro model?
It's literally just down here. It's just like it's a bog standard DJI Air, and this is the controller.
Oh man, that's sick.
Like, honestly, it's so good. It's so good. I've been wanting to get a drone forever, and I was like, I really I love nature. I love to, I just wanted to get great footage of great scenes, and the idea is to then eventually cut that up into components for like a live visual.
Yeah, so this is what I wanted to get into, right? So like you were saying that there's like some AI masking tools or something like that where you can like rip. Is it kind of like stem separation or something like that?
Yeah. I mean that's a really, really good analogy. It's like in Final Cut, it's just magnetic mask. But previously you used to have to rotoscope things, frame by frame. But now you just sort of capture an area in a single frame and then say analyze, and it'll like track a mountain for across like a 2-minute clip, and And I'm doing some like rudimentary messing around in Touch Designer with the idea that like each of the engines in Scapeshift / Pattern Shift would have various different like components in a landscape that would represent them, and then those components would be sort of transformed and manipulated over OSC, using like the envelopes and various parameters, etc.
That sounds absolutely sick, man.
Well, I haven't done it yet. I mean, this is the thing. I haven't done it.
I guess that's the thing, right? Because like, with Pattern Shift and with Scapeshift, maybe I can like tell you what they are and you can tell me if I'm right. So Scapeshift is like a reactor ensemble that's like, it's a parametric sequence of like 6 sound engines, right? Is that about right?
Yeah.
And then Pattern Shift is kind of like, I don't know if it's the same engines. I guess it's some of the same sequence engines, but moved to the push, right? Is there any kind of bigger? Can you maybe like differentiate the two a bit better for us?
Yeah, I mean the big lift. I mean, originally I wanted to do a sort of light MIDI mapping for Scapeshift, but then I realized that. So basically, the data structures behind Pattern Shift, the way it deals with data is very different to Scapeshift. I mean, Scapeshift is designed to kind of fit into the world of plugins. So you can save entire presets for the entire thing in the plugin chunk, all of that kind of stuff. So it's designed to play nicely with a DAW. Pattern Shift is very much focused on a live instrument, but not just a mapping for performance. It's also, I wanted to build data structures so you could basically carry out like the planning phase and the performance phase with the same thing. So the idea is, and what I've been trying to do is like sit down every week or so and just record. I'm calling them pattern harvest, which is basically going through the engines, playing around and just saving things down. So it's got these 2 modes. One, the first mode is note view. I mean, it's just named after one of the buttons on the push.
Yeah.
And that's just like a kind of endless journal, an infinite journal of patterns that you can just keep on appending stuff. And it's got like 50,000. I had to like give the array a size which is like 50,000, but that's a lot of patterns. Running out of those that soon. And then it's got this other mode, which is the session mode, where you can then kind of select groups of those patterns once you've created them, and then put them on the session page where you have these collections. And then and so the idea is you kind of explore in notes mode and you perform in session mode.
This is something, so like, yeah, it's amazing, man. This is something that I've been kind of getting into recently. Of like, I've gotten back in every like 3 or 4 years, I'll like get into Maximus P again, and I'm right in the middle of it again now, where I'm like, nice. Right. So what I'm trying to do, like, I'm trying to do like a couple of shows like this year. Like, I've had a couple of friends ask me about doing things, but the main problem that I always have with these things is that like, trying to recall any kind of like jam that you've had previously, if you're using like Ableton Live or something like that, it's just a fucking nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So I've switched over to like building a rig around strokes using Maximus P, and I've kind of got the global state thing down, right? So like the idea is like I can jump on the rig for an hour every evening and like set up all the parameters, get it sounding good, save that, and then when it comes to doing like a jam or something like that, I know roughly what all these things sound like, so I can move between them and improvise on the spot. You've got this stuff nailed down. It's so tricky. Like,
I mean, I don't know. It's funny actually. Like, since putting it out, I mean, to me, it makes total sense. And then I launched it, and like a bunch of people got it, but a bunch of people were just like, this makes no sense. Like, what do all these buttons mean? It's just like random blinking lights.
I've heard that a million times as well, man.
yeah.
But
I mean, the thing is, it's like that is a really important perspective, because as people who build things, we have the luxury of knowing the entire architecture of the entire thing, and like anybody can ask us like, how does this specific thing work, and we could just like give an answer off the top of our heads because we built it. And I think it's really easy to forget how kind of deep that knowledge goes when you're communicating it to people. So yeah, to me, it's just like, yeah, I'm really pleased with the way it works. It works exactly the way that I dreamt it to. But then a bunch of people are just like, oh, there's loads of kind of things that feel to you like edge cases, or feel like you and me like edge. That doesn't matter. But for people who haven't got into it, these are like massive freaking cliff edges that they fall off and get completely confused.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like, it's a tricky one as well, right? Because there's so much complexity in the thing that you've built, but also like it always sounds good, which is kind of like it kind of has that thing of like, I don't know. I think maybe one of the differences between our things is like with strokes, right? There's not kind of any. You kind of start with a completely blank slate. Like when you like put notes in, there's actually not going to be any sounds coming out until you like select a voice and choose the synth engine and stuff like this. Do you know what I mean? Everything has to be kind of, there's like a kind of determinism to it, right? Like if I want to drop in like a rhythm that's in my head, right? There's a drop down that I can do, and I can tap it in, or I can switch over to the parametric thing, right? And I guess like from what I've seen like online with your stuff, there's like some people are saying it's like it's amazing and stuff like that, but then there's also this thing of like, is this like a Tim's album?
Right?
Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Tim Exile game, like that's
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is. I mean, this kind of cuts right to the core of what we're both doing, I think, and really anybody who's on this stepping out into this world where you're not just like composing music, you're building systems, and there are so many different levels that you can build systems at, and there's kind of like pros and cons to existing at each level. Like, you know, people like you and me, we get very little time to actually make music because we spend most of our time building things.
Yeah, dude, like for real, when I've been working on like the worst thing that I find to work on is like oscillators. Like when I was building the oscillator for stacks, it was like it's broken, and like you look at the waveform over and you can see little clicks and little deformities in the waveform. You've got to listen to that shit for 8 hours a day, and then when it works, it's time to move on to something else. It's not like you don't get a tune at the end of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, no, I've been listening to like a fucked oscillator all day. I really don't want to jam right now.
Yeah, but it's I think it is really important work, because you by making an oscillator, you're opening up possibilities of expression for other people. And I think that's a really good example. Like you build an oscillator and some rudimentary controls, or not or some complex controls for the oscillator, whatever it is, and you then, that opens up a lot of expressive opportunities for people to find their way that they want to incorporate that oscillator into things. But then, sorry, dub techno just started coming out of my which, no bad thing, but not the right time. But then, I mean, I think, yeah, the Scapeshift challenge is, and I think with like system design, like how far do you go down the road of like, giving people basic kind of nuts and bolts to bolt together their own system that sounds completely like them, and the other end, it's like, here's a bunch of stuff that you can just like mash together with really high level things like dice rolls and style cards and themes, where it sort of feels like people are interacting with your brain rather than necessarily.
This is like, it's interesting. Like when I first designed strokes, right, it was like it was just 100% like a MIDI sequencer, and it was like that for the first like 2 years or something like that. So like the idea was like, you buy this plugin that's a good MIDI sequencer. So I guess I'll explain briefly. Like the idea of strokes is that like you have like 4 rhythm tracks that can all like play at different rates. Each one has like built-in sequencers, and they can all kind of interact with each other. So the idea would be like, say you've got like a 4/4 kick drum on channel 1. that can be running a sequence which is changing the decay of a snare on a different track. And so you get all these kind of different relationships between different things interacting. It's a thing that we'll get into, like, because I think your stuff does it like insanely well. But yeah, for the first 3 years of Strokes, it was like just a MIDI thing, right? So the idea was like, you get the plugin, but then you have to build your rig around it. And so it was like I was kind of handing over all of that, the sound design stuff to the users. And what I found when I was developing it is that like, when you have a system like that, the sequencing becomes such an integral part of the sound design itself. Like, it's like, that's kind of what it offers. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of the strength. It's almost like, I mean, it's not fully like cybernetic in the like proper like Roland Kane closed circuit way, right? But like everything is kind of happening for a reason, right? Everything is like the reason why the length of your hi-hat just changed is because you muted the kick drum on a note where that was turned up. Do you know what I mean? And all these kinds of things can happen. But yeah, like, and then later on, like once I added the so Strokes has got the all the synth engines from Platts now, the mutable instruments module. Then it kind of shifts to being like, well, what can you do with these like 8 voices? You know, I just put them in there to be like, here's like a quick demo of the kind of thing that you might want to set up with it. But then like now it's shifted to like a lot of people just use the built-in sound engines and the sampler, and that's kind of enough as well to like put your own mark on it, you know?
Yeah, I mean the convenience factor. I think it is really important. Like, no, however nerdy or however much you're building things to appeal to people who really want to dig in and customize things and build their own things with what you're building, it's still there has to be like, you have to kind of like right size the convenience. And you know, just having something that you can open and you press play and it makes sound is really important. And I think the thing that I think about a lot is like how to architect the sort of product journey, so you can open it for the first time and you go bang 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 bang, wow, it does stuff, and I can, you know, you immediately experience agency with it without having to go into a bunch of setup. But then also, I mean, the ideal product would then just have this kind of linear journey right the way down to you know, completely dismantling the product and hacking it to build your own thing. But I mean, Scapeshift doesn't have it right. I think that the sort of curve, the Scapeshift curve, is like really good instant gratification and really good super nerdy and a big gap in the middle.
What do you think's happening in that middle bit? Because one thing that I sometimes find with using these like music systems and stuff like that is that like you might spend like 3 or 4 weeks building them, or much longer in a lot of cases. There's sometimes a struggle to like, can it sound good for longer than an hour? Do you know what I mean? Like after an hour, am I like, do I want to tear this down and add a new thing? Like,
yeah.
I guess that's probably what's maybe happening in that middle section, right? It's like you coming out of the like glossy, everything is new and exciting, into like, how do I work this into like repeatable results? You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean the repeatable results thing. I mean that's another.
Is that possible with like with Scape and PTNSHFT? Like if you send me a project file and I open it on my machine, am I going to get a 1-for-1 with what you'd sent, or is there like some kind of like, does it deviate?
So it's deterministic. So it's not like it's not stochastic. It's like kind of complex math. So if I create a pattern with a bunch of settings and you know, I send, so you can kind of export pattern banks and sequences, and it would, like, if I sent you a sequence, it would play back exactly the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's somehow like capturing that journey. Because I think your point, what you were saying earlier about you know, when you're building systems, you you kind of lose the I mean, this happens in a DAW as well. Like, you're just, you're noodling around with something, just like, oh, that's really good, and then you noodle away from it, and then suddenly that thing is lost, and it's quite.
Yeah,
I think,
like, why doesn't this sound as good as it did 5 minutes ago? What have I done?
yeah. And how do I get back to that? I
But
think
you've got this figured out, right? You've got like a history that you can jump back through in Scapeshift, right?
yes, yeah.
That's insane to me, man.
I mean, it's got like 32 levels of undo. So it just like every time. I mean, and it doesn't remember if you do like continuous adjustments, because obviously you don't want to like create every single parameter change event. But all the randomizations and so on, you can then flip back through.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you the confidence, really, just like mess around, deviate from things as much as you want to, and then know that you're not going to have to think about like, oh, that's good. You don't have to make the decision in the moment whether that's good or not.
Yeah. I have a similar setup in Strokes. So like, there's 5 patterns in Strokes, and you start in the first pattern, and like every time you make a parameter change, it's being written into that pattern. Then when you jump to the next pattern, if it's blank, like everything gets copied over. So you can kind of see the patterns as like a breadcrumb trail. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can be like, right, okay, we're in this, now we're going to this. And if I like, the kind of like little points that you can always jump back to. And then those get developed into, breakdowns and intros and stuff like that. I've also got like an interpolation system set up, which was like, can I ask a question? Have you ever used like a Nord modular before?
No.
Right.
No.
Well, it's got this thing in it called the mutator, which is like one of the sickest bits of like audio design, or synth design I've ever seen. Right. It's basically got this like, so it's a modular. It's like hardware modular, but with a software editor. So like once you've set up all your patch cables, all the state of every single module is stored in like in patterns, and it does these cool little like turtle drawings to show you like graphical representations, which will basically mean like, okay, so your oscillator is set up, so you've got like the tune-in is like this, and then the D, so that'll make us go like one step forward, and then the tune-in makes us rotate, and then the amplitude makes us go forward, and so you get these kind of like weird generative drawings that are just decided by the values of your parameters. So I built that in Strokes as well. It's fucking well cool, because you kind of like look at the patterns that you've generated, and like one might look like a dog. So you're like, oh, the dog pattern, I remember that one. And it kind of gives you this like mental image of what it's going to sound like. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you can look at the drawing and figure out what it's going to sound like, but you kind of have this,
but you
in
can
your brain, you kind of associate it with, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm like massively inspired by the normal models thing. It's got all of this really clever randomization in for that's custom designed for each module, right? So you can lock the tuning of all your oscillators, you can lock all the time of your envelopes and randomize everything else. It's kind of smart in the way that it does it. Like, it knows what's going to sound good or not, so yeah, like the whole pattern interpolation system that I built like kind of comes from that. And like once it's working, man, it's so sick. Like, having a morphin in between, or just being able to like quickly jump to another pattern for a fill or something like that. It's just like, yeah. Can we dig into like your sound? So like the stuff that I've seen, you sent me like one of your React patches, right? For how you got the push to work, and like it was the craziest shit I've ever seen in React. Like, I opened one of the modules, and inside it was just like this beautiful cascade of patch cables, hundreds of them that were just like, you've got to be one of them getting like pretty low level in Reactor now, right? Like, there's not going to be many people that like can do the shit with Reactor that you can do, right? Like, is everything in your sound engines like, are these your own envelopes and filters and oscillators and stuff like that? Is it like stuff that you've built up over the years, or?
Some of the raw, I mean, some of the DSP I built, some of it comes with Reactor. So that like the filters, the like zero delay nonlinear filters, that those all come with Reactor. So they're like built-in things, and you can they're built in Reactor core. So Reactor has these kind of two zones, I guess. You've got primary, which is the first one that's developed, and then you've got core, which is basically like a visual version of C. So it's literally like C functions, just represented as boxes, and that's the one that you use for building DSP. So yeah, filters. I've used kind of off-the-shelf ones. Same with oscillators. But things like the delay, I rolled the delays myself. The reverb built myself. All the drum synths, etc. So there is some really good stuff. Yeah, there are some really good components in Reactor already, but the thing that I probably spend most of my time in is just like building data structures in Reactor, because Reactor is not designed to be a development environment. It's an overgrown patching environment. But what's really great about that is that you can very quickly build. You can almost sort of build. You can build systems like you build tracks in a very kind of intuitive way, just like plugging stuff in together. So you plug something in, you hear pretty much instantly how it's going to sound, and you can interact with it instantly, which is amazing. But to sort of build this whole, basically build data structures around that, there's a bunch of hacks you have to do, and there is absolutely nothing. It's a waste. There's less in Reactor for building that stuff than there is in like C++. If you're using Juice or even Max, Max actually has really good data structures and memory sharing and stuff like that. With Reactor, there are a few. There's like 5 or 6 really important hacks that you wouldn't know unless basically like one of the NI developers had told me like 20 years ago, oh yeah, if you do this, then you can like share a piece of memory across the entire structure and like read and write to it anywhere.
Nice.
And that's that's what enables like building entire applications basically.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get my head around how you even got this working with the push, right? Because like you sent me that patch to I opened it up and I was like, what the fuck is going on inside of here? Like how did you, like, we were talking about how you got the screen to work a couple of weeks ago, right? Can you explain how you even solved that in the end? So
that wasn't me. That was one of my Patreon patrons, Nicholas Bergius, Swedish guy. So Bergius is probably the completely wrong pronunciation, but we've mostly been speaking via text. But so he developed that. I gave it a stab using VS Code with GitHub Copilot.
Tried to vibe code your way out of it.
Exactly. I tried to vibe code the like push.
That's another thing with Reactor, right? You can't vibe code Reactor because there's no text input, right? So it's one of the fun things about being back in Max is like, oh no, I've got a problem solved.
Yeah. So yeah, Nicholas like really ran with that, and then he ended up going quite deep on getting it to work. There was a lot of stuff to figure out. But it works pretty seamlessly now, and
amazing work, man.
Yeah, that was, all hats off to him. I had nothing to do with that whatsoever. So still very, very grateful to him for building that. And it's publicly available now, so you don't have to like get PTNSHFT to get it. So there's a link to that.
So you can just like do Reactor stuff with the push,
like, or anything, anything that so it can catch an area of screen anywhere from any app.
That's insane. Yeah, big up Nicholas. That's amazing work.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, go on.
Well, my hope is that like more people will build stuff for push, because I think like using PTNSHFT, and I'm sure with like using strokes on push as well, feels like hardware.
It's a completely different experience to like what, and like it's way better than I thought it would be. Like when I started using it on push, it's like it makes so much more sense than like the way that the plugin's laid out. Do you know what I mean? I guess it's because the way that it designed, like, I started working on strokes 5 years ago, and it was built in Max MSP first, and like like I said, like it was a MIDI sequencer back then, and like now there's multiple pages and stuff. So like the actual design of the UI and stuff like that was like okay, we got this, and then we put this on it, and then like it's like an iterative thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like when you do it with the push, it's like you kind of get like a start again almost, and like rethink everything through. So, you know, I've got it set up similar to how you'd imagine like an Electron Groove Box or something like that, where you have like your tracks with like sequencer, voice engine, amp effects, and then all the other cool stuff that Strokes does on top. But yeah, getting it to work for like getting it to work with the plugin was like really fun. Like I met somebody at a Machina Brastronica called Kinga last year, and they showed me that they had like they had a Raspberry Pi with a push 2, and they built like a standalone hardware Groovebox, and it was running like a VST, like 8 instances of a VST, and you could literally just like, you know, run this on a fucking Raspberry, like a 50-pound Raspberry Pi with your push, and you've got like a pretty like infinite amazing Groovebox with like a really good VST built into it. And I was like, damn, that is insane. It was really cool. And so I was like, yeah, I've got to give this a try. I've already got the Groovebox built. And yeah, it took me a while to do it, to get around to it, because I was working on stacks and stuff. But yeah, it's amazing, man. Like there's so many little things that I got lucky with as well, like the way that the push is laid out. There's just the right amount of buttons in the right place for different things to, do you know what I mean? But yeah, getting it to work was difficult, man. Like the way that mine works is like you have to run a standalone application in the background, and that handles like the connection between the push and the plugin. So it's called the Stroke shuttle because it shuttles data between the push and the plugin. So when you run the shuttle, it connects to the USB, and then it starts like an internal server, and then the plugin connects to that server. And see, like it's weird when you boot it up, it like asks for like firewall access and stuff like that.
Really?
Basically,
Wow.
like basically making like a little server. So like the server's job is to like move images to the push and move MIDI stuff back. So once I kind of like, oh man, like the feel, like when I first got it to load an image from the plugin, like I can just basically send it memory blocks of like image data. And the first time that happened, I was like, I can literally write like the UI code that I've done to do all the UI stuff. I can just kind of copy and paste that and run it on the push. It's insane. It updates at like 60 frames a second. I guess this is how like Overbridge works for Electron or something like that, where you have like, yeah, something's just speaking to the USB and like moving all the data across a little server. I mean, they do it with audio stuff, which is insane. One thing that I really want to hear about is dynamic buses. Can you break down the dynamic buses thing? I'm working on a compressor as like a job at the minute, so like I'm big into compression at the minute. So I'd love to hear about it in your words.
Yeah. So there's five buses. So everything buses down to drums, bass, lead, backing, effects. And then they go into this. So each of those 5 buses then gets broken down into 4 bands. I mean, so I basically molded it on like OTT in Ableton, just a multi-band limiter, but basically, or like multi-band compression. But this is like multi-channel multi-band. So once you get the buses, it then breaks down each channel into I think it's 4 bands. I was looking at, maybe I did the 5th band. I can't remember now. So it breaks down into 4 bands, and then each band in each channel is summed individually. But you've got this kind of like it's almost like a kind of first past the post, like competition. So it's basically just like measuring, it's taking the levels in real time, which is like fairly simple. I mean, decibel peak detectors, and then it's basically like taking the max one, and anything basically it's attenuating if anything is lower in level in that band than the loudest signal in that band, it like multiplies how much lower it is. So basically,
it just clicked.
Yeah. So like the winning thing just pushes everything down.
That's insane, right? Okay.
So each band, and
let me put this back to you, right? So we've got like, let's just bring it down to like 2 two instruments, right? Kick and bass, right?
Mm.
So if the bass is playing like a low velocity note at the same time the kick is playing a high velocity note, the bass just gets pulled out completely because it's not the winning instrument in that band. Is that right?
It's like kind of multi-band sign shading. Imagine
Yeah.
it instead of just having like your kick side chaining the bass, you've got like 5 different channels, and basically the loudest signal at any one time, the loudest signal is like side chaining everything else, and that is calculated in real time.
That is insane, man. I love that because it's I think it must be such a big ingredient in making everything sound so tight when you like, and with these kind of parametric generative systems or whatever, keeping things sounding tight is like the big challenge, right? You know?
Yeah. That's that is the thing. So
that's such a great idea. So like, does that mean that at any time there's 6 instruments and 4 bands, you've got, what's that, like 24 compressors running at once? Is that right?
Oh well, so I guess they're not like full blown compressors. They're quite sort of reduced in scope. You basically got like peak detectors, and it's very vanilla in terms of you're not doing much to shape like the attack and shape the release and do hold times and look ahead. No, actually no, there are some look aheads, but it's fairly rudimentary.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be. Yeah, I mean, you do have to do a bit of treatment of the signal, because when you get like when the sort of max peak detectors cross over, you can get clicks at that. So let's say like kick is louder than bass, and then bass gets louder than kick. And you
It's quickly got to be pulled out and like
but if you have to do some processing around that like transition point. So yeah, I mean, there's a bit of stuff that needs to be sorted out, but it's not that complicated.
It's awesome, man. It feels like one of those things as well that just isn't really something. I mean, it's achievable in DAW, but it's not really something that you'd want to set up. Like if you set that up, that's pretty much your whole day, and your whole track is going to be, what does this do?
Yeah. And I've actually, I mean, I thought about just making this a sort of standalone product, this like a band auto mix thing, which I think would be sick. But most DAWs don't allow you to route. You can't route multiple buses into multiple inputs of a plugin. You can get multiple outputs from it. So I'm just like, well, I mean, you can do it in Reaper, I think, but that's about it. So I'm just like, a product that you need to like be a Reaper user and own Reactor to use, I'm just like, nah, forget about it. But I've got some ideas about other applications to use it in, and it is, for making like but ready to go boxes where you can just like do stuff and it sounds like mixed stuff is cool.
Yeah. So what else is going on in the like mastering chain for it? So I imagine you got like the dynamic buses first, and then there's like
so dynamic summing, and then it sums each of the bands. So you've got like the 5 channels and the 4 bands. So it then sums each of the bands individually, and then that goes into a multi-band compressor to do the whole like OTT mastering thing.
Yeah.
Then it goes through a kind of like tape, like wow flutter thing, which is, I mean, it's like my first tape emulator. I mean, it's really basic, but it sounds right. And then it goes into a tape saturation thing, which I built, which is again my first tape saturation, kind of trying to model magnetic hysteresis. I don't know whether I got it right, but it sounds all right. And then it goes into a kind of like long range master compressor, which is like slow attack, very slow release, and then into like a short range, just like picking out any transients. So,
amazing, man. It sounds unreal. Like it's super tight, and from what, like it sounds like you could really like kind of dial it in as well, right? Like it's not just going to be completely overblown at all times. It's like you got to kind of set it up if you want it to really lock and duck with the other elements.
And there's a ducking circuit as well that's like so you can basically like send the kick and snare to a ducking, like a peak detector, and then you can then dial in the amount that the other channels are then kind of modulated, like negatively modulated by the peak detector. So you've got like ducking before that as well.
Mint, man. Can I ask you about so in like a pattern shift and scape shift, you've got like every parameter can be like modulated by what's called like patterns internally. And there's like a list, right? So you like select a pattern from a list, and then you like choose the amount of modulation that's being applied to it, right? So like, what's the process for generating those patterns? Like those patterns are basically like sequences of modulation, right? Are they just lists of numbers that you're stepping through, or is there kind of?
It's really yeah. Again, it's a very like dumb algorithm. It's like, so you've got the clock count, you know, from 0 to, so like each end of you've got like a maximum loop length, which is the factor of bar length times the multiple. So you could have like a, you know, 7 4, so I don't know, yeah, 28/16 per bar, and then 16 repetitions of that, and that's your kind of like overall clock. And then you're then taking that clock and processing it through a sort of like a mirror wrap. So it goes and you're basically like setting, so obviously it's like an integer count, but then the calculation that like the mirrored wrap is a floating point calculation, and you basically like just multiply the clock by a float, the clock integer by a float, and which is actually, it's actually represented as integers in the interface. So you have the pattern is like 0 to 99, but it's actually 0 to 1. So it's multiplying the integer clock signal by 0 to 1, and then it's like wrapping that. So when it gets to let's say you've got, it's like 0.1, the multiplier is 0.1. So when the clock gets to 10, it hits 1, and then it counts back down from 10 to 20. It's counting back down to 0, and then 20 to 30 back up to 1, and then you're just changing. So what those pattern things are doing is just changing the multiplier, like the floating point multiplier of the integer clock.
And then is there like a sample and hold circuit or something like that like grabs these values at an event, or is it like just passed straight through? I'm just trying to think of like, because it doesn't sound like things are just going up and down like a triangle.
No. I mean? Yeah, this is the thing. It's like, and that value is only triggered like, so let's say you've got a 4/4 kick. So you're triggering a kick on like 0, 4, 8, 12, etc. And it will only pass this value, this modulation value. It'll only calculate it and send an event on 0, 4, 8, 16. So if your multiplier is like 0.3, then it'll be 0. Oh god, I have to do live math.
No, this is too much maths. Yeah. Do you find sometimes it's like, I'm not like, I don't really like, I do like DSP code and stuff like pretty much every day, but I'm really shit at maths.
yeah. I have to. Yeah,
like, I mean, I have a lot of time when I'm doing like, when I'm trying to like figure out some like, I don't know, some algorithm or something from like a white paper or something like that, or like you'll read a tutorial and they're like, oh yeah, guys, you'll remember this from like 6th grade calculus. And I'm like, that was not what we were doing at GCSE. Like,
yeah. And I mean, I have to do really dumb shit like draw diagrams. I mean, one of the stupid levels of detail that I really shouldn't have bothered going into. But like in Scapeshift, you've got that the pattern sequencer. You can drop patterns, and then you've got these triangles that intersect, and they're anti-aliased. So you and Reactor, you can't actually draw anti-aliased shapes in Reactor. So I had to like build. So each of those is calculated literally pixel by pixel, and I had to build an algorithm for the for basically creating the anti-aliasing for each pixel in a line. And that I spent like it took me a stupid amount of time of like drawing on the back of envelopes, like trying to figure out what the maths are for like how much of an area of a pixel is intersected by a line to get like the
That is, yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, it is and it isn't. It's stupid.
Sometimes those things happen though, where you're just like, oh, it would be nice if it did this, and then you're just stuck on it for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a perfect example, right? So like when I was doing the push 2 thing for strokes, I had it working like ages ago, pretty much. But there was one problem that I had, which was like, so people like understandably wanted to be able to go from like live. So on the push, there's 2 modes. There's live mode and there's user mode. And the idea is like, you know, live mode is meant to work in Ableton Live, and then user mode is when you want to have some custom mapping on there, right? So like, so in an ideal world, it's like, okay, live mode we're controlling Ableton Live, user mode we're controlling strokes. And so you think on paper, it's like, okay, well, we just press the 2 buttons and like, bada bing, bada boom, it's all taken care of, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like what I found was that like with the push 2, it just goes into like user mode and then like locks the screen. So like all of the pads and all of the buttons would be like doing stroke stuff, but there was no way to kind of like grab the display back from live. So a couple of things that I tried. So I guess the reason why this is all so complicated is because like plugins are sandboxed, right? So like plugins can't speak to the USB port. They can't do all these things. That's why there's a standalone application on the side which has all these different permissions. So one solution that I found was like when you press user mode to get the display back off the push, it runs a shell command which kills the push to display process in Ableton, and that kills it for like 20 milliseconds or whatever. And in that 20 milliseconds, you can quickly try and grab it.
Wow.
So it's how it works on Windows, which it's fucking dumb, and it shouldn't work like that. I spoke to the people at Ableton who made the push, and they're like, "We're going to get this changed because you shouldn't be doing it like that." So that I was like, right, okay, I've got this figured out on Windows, right? So I tried to do it on Mac, but like Macs are a bit more fussy with like security and privileges and stuff like that. So like, what happened was like I was in the standalone application. It was just crashing when it was trying to run this command because it thought it was like a virus. Understandably, you know, you wouldn't really want a computer program to just arbitrarily be able to kill any process that's running on your machine, because like what the hell is it going to do? So I couldn't get it working on Mac like from the standalone app. So I was trying to think of like, right, what else can I do inside of Ableton that's going to be able to get this working, right? So I made a Max for Live patch and found that like there was a Max for Live external, which is basically like a custom Maximus P object made like 10 years ago called Shell, which lets you run shell commands from Maximus P. So I got that working, and
wow,
that was great. So like, but to get that working, like it hadn't been updated for ages, so I had to like
recompile it.
I recompile it for like ARM 64-bit and stuff like that. So like I spent like a week learning how to build Max externals. I tried to do all this shit, and then I got it working, right? And I pressed the button on in the push to make it flip into live mode, and basically the only way it would execute was like on the audio thread. So every time you pressed it, you just get like a massive like, you know, CPU goes to 100% for 3 seconds and then it quickly comes back. And it's like, I've spent 3 weeks on this and like it's not going to work. It's like I just need to give up at this point. And then I was just like, fuck it, yeah, I'll put it out, because like if I spend it, like the app's ready to go, it's just this one tiny little problem that I was stuck on for like 3 weeks. So like I need to get this out of my head, or like come back to it later on, you know. Like I say, it's just you get stuck on these little things, don't you? And you're like, you know it would be good if it did this thing.
Or you just kind of like, we just set expectations for yourself and just like, I want to be the guy that made it do that, even though like regardless of how relevant that is to the people who are actually going to use it. But I don't know. I think often these things, I think developers often get, like engineers often get a lot of there's sort of like the sort of bassist and drummer style jokes about engineers like just wanting to do completely irrelevant things. And I think if you're like a proper hardcore engineer and you literally your whole life is just immaculate code, then that might be true. But I think if you've got a vision for a product and you're building those products, you want to use the products, you've got a bunch of people who use the products and talk to you about how they're using the products, then I think you do end up with quite a good intuition about what's actually important. I don't know. I mean, this is something I'm kind of feeling out again now, because now I'm sort of like solo builder guy again.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, so I don't have to like manage a team and a backlog and the resources and try, make a decision about, oh well, we should do this next because of stakeholder X, Y, Z, whatever.
100%. I find that all the time of like, the only reason that stuff gets added to Strokes is because like I want it to do that thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I do get amazing suggestions from people about like you're saying, like things that you assume are going to be edge cases or you just think nobody's going to bother with might be like the one thing someone bases their entire track around or whatever.
Yeah.
So like there is some kind of, but yeah, like I'm kind of confident that if I want something added and it's interesting to me, then it's going to be interesting to enough other people out there. Do you know what I mean? That like I don't make plugins for other people necessarily. Do you know what I mean? Like, or for an audience, or like it's kind of, I just assume that if I like it, then there's going to be enough other people out there that have a similar mindset. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, if I was to sit down and be like, plan a plugin that's going to sell a bazillion copies or whatever, like I have no idea. Do you know what I mean? Nobody would really be interested in, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had a thought then, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway,
but yeah, like you say, man, just doing it, and like it's interesting when you're just doing it yourself, right? Because like, yeah, I can just wake up and decide to work on something completely different for a week, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, that was my thought. It was I find that it's like so much more hinges on like how you actually communicate stuff to people. And this is what I'm finding, like, I mean, the sort of reception of pattern shifts is a really good example of that. There's like a lot of people, I thought I did this kind of like 1 hour, 20-minute walkthrough of everything. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's gonna do it. That's going to explain it to everybody and everybody will understand. And like a lot of people didn't. And I think that, yeah, the difficulty a lot of the time is actually just like communicating to people, not just what it can do, but like why you should make it do this thing. Like what can this thing do for you when you make it do that thing?
This is something I've talked about with like other like plugin friends and developers, is that like, we'll spend 3 months or something working on like a feature, making it do a thing, but that's completely pointless unless you can make and this applies to pretty much all creative industries now, like it's pointless unless you can turn it into educational, funny 60-second video.
Totally.
Like otherwise you might as well not have bothered. Like and I did this with like, so one of the things I did recently was like was anti-aliasing for the stacks oscillators. I did like I do like band limited using like an FFT. So what that means is like every octave gets a fresh copy of the waveform, and
right,
you can just pull all the harmonics from the top of it.
Yes.
So I spent like 3 weeks on that, and the like effect of like when you press the button, it's like you lose a tiny little bit of aliasing at the top. And I was like, well, I'm glad I did that. It was worthwhile, but like, how the fuck am I going to convey this to anybody that like this was worth doing, or like, you know what I mean? You're not going to buy something because it's anti-aliasing, but it's still like you can make something fun out of it. Make like,
but it's like it's long tail stuff, because it's like the quality things. You can't like, quality in itself isn't really like a value proposition. It's sort of what people expect, and people have high expectations. I have high expectations, and like every time something doesn't meet those expectations, you just like the thing that you're interacting with just like has a little bit lopped off your estimation of that thing. And that the sort of like it's long tail of this solving UX issues and solving quality issues and fixing bugs. It's like that there's no kind of immediate, you can't like make an amazing TikTok about how you fixed a bug. But like if you keep on doing that over time, then it does. You know, it's like that long tail stuff. It's just really, it's hard to measure. You don't get an immediate, like, you don't sort of like walk out into the center of an auditorium and everyone and you say, I fixed the bug.
Yeah, no, totally, man. But yeah, awesome, man. It's been
Yeah.
really nice chatting. And
Great to
like,
meet
yeah,
you.
let's stay in touch and like, yeah,
we'll stay in touch and do more things. And you know, maybe we could do a collab at some point. On something.
I would love that, man. Yeah, that'd be sick.
Ace. That'd be ace.
All right, good to speak to you, man. Catch you very, very soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.